ghost story at the station. In 2019, the governments of Thailand and Cambodia officially reopened the railway line from Ban Kalong Luk, Thailand, to Poipet, Cambodia. In the late 1980s and early 1990s, I was in this area. The train station in the town of Poipet, Cambodia, had been closed since 1974 due to the war. It was a desolate and abandoned place, with fortified positions on both sides. After the Vietnamese volunteer forces expelled the Khmer Rouge, they handed over the area to the new Cambodian government. At that time, I was in the Mpin area, which means tamarind tree in Vietnamese. There was a reservoir called Lake Mpin, which was built by the Khmer Rouge government to store fresh water. Due to severe water shortages during the dry season in this area, the reservoir was over 1 square kilometer in size. There were several small villages of Cambodian people nearby. At that time, this place was in Battambang province, now known as Banti Meanchi. On the other side of the Thai border, just a few kilometers away, were roads 3346 and 3308. These two roads ran parallel to each other and intersected northwest of the lake before venturing further into the interior of Thailand. This place was not unfamiliar to former soldiers, with infamous strategic strongholds like Ampin, Poipet, 175, Phumalai. It was a place with dense bamboo forests and countless landmines and human remains. As this was the route through the Poipet border crossing, many traders and Vietnamese people fleeing the Khmer Rouge genocide regime crossed through here to reach Thailand. That's how it used to be, but since the liberation, this place has undergone a tremendous transformation. Just a few years after our return, we were amazed by the changes. Nowadays, this area is one of the most concentrated areas of casinos in Cambodia, while across the border is the Aranyaprathet district of Sa Kaeo province, Thailand. In the past, I heard stories from local people and other comrades about the supernatural occurrences here. Due to my interest in exploring eerie places and supernatural stories, I always asked in various ways. In this place, I heard quite a few of those stories. Let me share a few interesting snippets with you. During the war, Poipet was desolate and abandoned in many places. People only started to settle near the border checkpoint, and there was an abandoned industrial zone near Lake Ampin. Later, the remnants of the Khmer Rouge returned and established a sizable base there. I can't remember its exact name now, and it has disappeared without a trace. Modern houses have been built there, and the place looks beautiful. At that time, there were several well-known trails that could be used to cross into Thailand. One evening, two comrades told me that they had spotted many hidden figures along the road. Since there were still smugglers secretly crossing there from time to time, I wasn't too surprised. However, I found it strange that they dared to travel on those roads during daylight or just before dusk. Usually, they would only cross at night. One night, when the moon was bright, my 5 comrades and I returned from the Thai side to this area. We walked about 5 to 7 meters apart, observing our surroundings as we went. When we reached a flat field about to enter a sparse bamboo forest, we all noticed several faint figures ahead, accompanied by the sound of women's voices. This bamboo forest stood out like a grave mound in the barren area, making it easy to observe and surround. We thought they were remnants of the Khmer Rouge, so we quickly split into 2 groups to intercept and encircle them. Since we had crossed here many times during the day, we were very familiar with the terrain. One group, led by Sergeant S., quickly cut off the path near a clump of shortened bamboo trees that extended into the field. My group, which included 1 other person, followed from behind. When we saw the dark and white shadows disappear into the bamboo forest, we also moved forward, blocking their retreat. However, strangely enough, when we entered the bamboo forest, they seemed to vanish into thin air, and there was not a single sound or movement. We thought they might have sensed our presence and hidden themselves, so we carefully searched every position but found absolutely nothing. The scorching sun made us exhausted. We gathered together and whispered to each other, wondering where they had gone. Finally, Corporal N gave the order to withdraw. I and Mr. S were at the end of the line when, strangely enough, as soon as we left the bamboo grove and reached the head of the shallow canal, I saw them behind me again under the bright moonlight. They were only about 20 meters away, and I could clearly see that the person leading them was a woman. I picked up a clump of dirt and threw it at Mr. S.'s back, but he had already noticed. He signaled for me to sit down, and the other comrades also sat down. Under the shimmering moonlight, all 11 of us counted, including 2 children. They were all women, girls. They followed behind us on the same worn-out path. However, when we sat down and aimed our guns at them, they passed by us as if in parallel. They all walked quietly under the moonlight. Previously, we could hear them talking, but when they passed by, they were only tens of meters away on either side. We all sat in silence, gaping in astonishment, as they continued on. It was strange, because there were many dried thorny bushes on that side, but when they passed through, not a sound was made, and the sounds of insects continued. This was very peculiar, because when walking at night in deserted places like this, insects were the signal of someone's presence. When humans were present, the insects suddenly fell silent. But this time, when they all passed by, the insects continued their incessant chirping. When we met the comrades at the border station and some local residents, I finally heard them tell me that it wasn't just us who encountered this strange phenomenon. The former comrades who had guarded that area at night had also encountered them. They were the villagers who had been killed and robbed by the bandits a few years ago, and they had been wandering in the thorny bamboo forest and barren land. Later, as we gradually retreated to point 175, where the dense bamboo forests were, we encountered many human bones below. There were the bones of women and children, whom I thought were Vietnamese because of their long hair and the white stainless steel hairpins that the women and older sisters in Vietnam used to wear. On the other hand, the Cambodian villagers all had the same style of hair, cut horizontally at the neck, according to the rules of the Khmer Rouge. The other day, when I was at the house of a railway employee here, I heard him tell a story, and this was the third time I had heard this story from 3 people, a comrade and 2 Cambodian individuals. In that Poi Pit station, during the Vietnam-US War, in the 60s and 70s, there was a Vietnamese girl, the daughter of a high-ranking official from the old regime, and her family was very wealthy. Her father had a small mansion right at the border gate, now a hotel below with a cafe and a beautiful small feng shui water pond. For some unknown reason, the girl committed suicide right at that station in 1971, and her body was crushed into pieces by a passing train. At that time, this place was still bustling, and her suicide caused a stir in public opinion for a long time. It was said that she took her own life because of a romantic affair. Afterward, many eerie stories about this girl were rumored among the local people here. Above the station gate, there is a small iron bridge, and now there is still an arch-shaped shrine where they found the girl's head. At first, they thought it had been crushed by the train, but somehow it followed the train all the way up there, over 100 meters away from the accident site, and fell into the canal below. One afternoon a few days after the accident, a middle-aged woman passing by the train station suddenly burst into tears and walked as if unconsciously, with both hands reaching out in front of her like a blind person. Then she headed to the bridge, crying out and demanding that everyone pick up her head. Many people witnessed the police retrieving the girl's mangled head there, but no one could explain why, as the girl and the woman were not acquainted, and the woman had no knowledge of the accident. She was just a visitor from afar. A railway employee who lived near there recounted that from a young age, he had witnessed the ghost of this girl walking along the railroad tracks up to the bridge. At that time, the station was closed due to the war, and only ruins remained. The headless girl would sway back and forth on the old railway tracks, clearly visible under the moonlight. After the girl's accident, there were a series of tragic train accidents that occurred for over a month, strangely enough, all at the station and not at the intersecting roads outside. The people who had worked at the station and were still alive recounted that when they were on duty at night, they often heard the sound of the train bell, the sound of knocking on doors, and the sound of "I apologize, but it seems like the text you provided is incomplete. It ends abruptly, and I'm unable to provide a continuation or conclusion based on the information given. If you have any specific questions or if there's anything else I can assist you with, please let me know." Some people say that they were pulled by a girl who reached out from the railroad tracks, or a man who is still alive about 2 kilometers away from the station tells a story. He went to the station to play soccer, and a girl kept waving her hands, enticing him to follow. He followed unconsciously, and then the train rushed by and took his legs and fingers, but he didn't die. The terrifying thing is that before he passed out, he still saw the girl among the crowd, pulling him out. Her eyes were filled with anger, not the smiling expression she had when she beckoned him to follow. He was so scared that he never dared to go near that station again. A railway station employee also recounted that many track maintenance workers were teased by this girl. She would come at midnight, knock on their doors, and take a walk on the railroad tracks with them. The climax was when a worker was run over by a train near a small iron bridge, where the girl's head was found long ago. Then, the responsible individuals at the station had to invite a spiritual master to perform rituals to restrain the rampage of that girl, and the accidents decreased afterward. However, since this station reopened in 2019, strange occurrences have been witnessed more than once. Once, a train driver saw a girl standing with her arms stretched out in the middle of the tracks, a short distance from the bridge. The train blew its horn and applied the brakes, but upon inspection, nothing was there. The most recent incident was 2 months ago when the waiting room staff experienced a terrifying moment. At 9 p.m., as they were cleaning up before going home, they suddenly smelled a strong, pungent odor. Upon investigation, they found someone lying on seat B, assuming it was a passenger who had fallen asleep on the train. 2 employees approached to wake the person up, but both of them screamed and rushed out in fear as they realized it was a badly mutilated corpse lying there. When others rushed in, surprisingly, there was nothing there, only a lingering, tangy smell in the room. Right outside this room is a veranda where, long ago, people used to gather the suicide victim's body,